Hey everyone, I'm Liz Ferry and today I'm going to show you how I made these butterfly wings. This tutorial is going to be a little different than my usual videos because this is going to be a sewing project. In this video, I'll show you how I made these small basic wings for a doll. And in my other video, I'll show you how I made these full-size costume monarch butterfly wings. Some things you'll need for this tutorial are a sewing needle, a pair of scissors, some regular and some flat pins, some craft wire. I'm going to use this 22 gauge wire because that's what I already have. It's a little thin, so I'll be layering the wire to give it more strength. You'll also need something to cut your wire. You'll need some tulle in the main color of your butterfly wings. Since I'm making such small wings, I'll be using this roll of mint green tulle for my basic wings. But for my bigger wings, I'm using a yard of orange tulle. I have this styrofoam board that I'm going to use to pin all around the outline of my wing design. You could use a cushion or a cardboard or a mattress. I had this foam left over from a purchase, so I thought I'd put it to some use. You'll also need a template to base your wings on. If you like, you can just look online for a set of wings that you like and use that, or you could use the templates that I made. In this video, I'll be using this simple pattern that I made inspired by Tinkerbell, and in my other video, I'll use this monarch butterfly wing template. You can find these pictures by clicking the link at the top of the screen. That will take you to my website where you can download the images. If you like, you can use regular sewing thread to fasten the tulle to the frame. Make sure you use a similar color to the edge of the wing pattern. For my monarch wings, I used this black thread, and for my basic wings, I didn't have a normal thread that matched the colors, so I used this mint green embroidery floss. And to decorate the wings, I'll be using more embroidery floss. For my basic wings, I used just 2 of these shiny mint embroidery flosses that match the color of the tulle that I'm using. If you're making a different style of wings, you can use different colors, but you may need different amounts of each depending on your chosen design. Since I'll be making such a small pair of wings, I'm just going to use 2. But if you're making bigger wings, you'll need more material. For more information about making larger wings, see my other video. And you'll need a doll to sew the wings onto when you're done. If you want to see how I made this doll, click the link at the top of the screen for my crochet doll tutorial. I'm going to begin by printing out my wing designs. There are several ways you can do this. First, I'm going to open the template that I want to print in Microsoft Paint. If you're using a different type of computer, the program you have installed may be different. I'm going to use these full wing templates that I made in order to make smaller doll-sized wings. If you want to make full-size wings, though, use the upper and lower half template of the wing instead so that the image will come out bigger. I'll go into more detail about making the larger wings in my other video. If you're making smaller wings, make sure to go into Preferences and switch settings to Landscape rather than Portrait so that the wings are smaller. If you want to save on ink, select the Draft setting. And if you want to save on color ink, select the black/grayscale setting. If you want to make the wings even smaller, you need to increase the margins of the picture. To do that, I'm going to go into Page Setup and find the Margins boxes. Then I'm going to set the top margin to 2 inches and the bottom margin to 1 inch. And that will determine how far from each edge the image will print. Next, I'm going to go into Print Preview and make sure the wing is the right size. And then I'm going to print. And if you like, you could make those lines a little darker by going over them again with a fine tip marker. This will also make it easier to see the design from both sides of the paper. Now I'm ready to start making my wings. First, I'm going to shape the wire by pinning all around the edges of my design through the paper into my styrofoam board. I want to make sure to put a lot of pins all around the curves to maintain their shape. Next, I'm going to wrap my wire around the pins to copy the outline of the wings. I'm going to weave the wire through each of the pins and bend it until it forms the right shape. Alright, I've wrapped all the way around. I'm going to go around one more time. Now I'm going to remove my pins and remove the wire frame. Then to join those two wires together, I'm going to wrap around both layers of wire all the way around. To make it easier to wrap the wire around, you could cut off a long length of wire instead of wrapping from the whole spool, like I did for the larger wings. Just make sure to cut a long enough excess of wire to go all the way around. Okay, I've finished wrapping my wire frame. Now I'm going to cut off my wire, and wrap the end around a few more times. And just to make sure I didn't warp my frame while I was wrapping it, I'm going to measure it against my design and make sure that it's about the same shape. Now I'm going to do that again to create another wing of exactly the same shape. Now that I have my wire frames, I'm going to cut my tulle. Since with tulle you get a more vivid color if you layer it, I'm going to use 6 layers of tulle for each wing. I've already cut 12 squares of tulle from my roll. Now I'm going to pin the tulle down once again into my styrofoam board along the edges of the wing design. And then I'm going to cut around all the layers of tulle with about an 1/8 inch of excess all the way around. Then I'm going to separate them into 2 groups of 6 layers. And I'm going to place a couple of pins through all 6 layers to keep them together. Next, I'm going to roughly sew the tulle around the wire frame that I made earlier. I'm going to use my regular floss to do this rather than the shiny floss so that I don't use up as much. So I'm going to sew the tulle to both of my wing frames using just one thread of the embroidery floss. Alright, I've sewn my tulle to the frame. Now I'm going to fasten off and cut my thread. I'll hide the tails of this thread later. Next I'm going to use my floss to cover up the rest of the wire frame around the edge. I'm going to use my regular embroidery floss for this too. If you want to finish faster, you could use 2 or 3 threads for this part, but I'm just going to use 1. And then I'm going to go over that area again with my shimmery floss so that the edge of the wing glitters. If you want though, you could just leave it as it is. Again, if you want, you could use 2 threads. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other wing. Now I've sewn around both of my wire frames with my embroidery floss, and now it's finally time to decorate the wings. If you want though, you could leave your wing like this for a more simple style. So I'm going to use one thread of the shimmery embroidery floss. To make it easier to work around the paper, I'm going to cut away the excess. Then I'm going to line up the frame with the design, and I'm going to use a couple of long flat pins to attach the paper to the tool temporarily. And I'm going to stitch through the paper following my template. So first I'm going to insert my needle into the edge of the frame where I've already placed my stitches around the edge. And pull through until there's a little bit of the tail ends of the thread sticking out. And I'm going to stitch around a couple of times just to anchor the thread. Then I'm going to cut off the tail so that it's hidden in the edge. To begin, I'm going to put my needle and thread to the back of the wing, the side with the paper. To sew both sides of the wing at once, I'm going to do a back stitch. So first, stitch across from the edge, tracing along the black line of my design. I'm going to stitch up through the paper, then to make the same line on the front of the wing, stitch back into the edge of the same spot that I started. And now to backstitch, I'm going to space the needle out for about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch of the line I've already stitched on the back side. Push the needle up through the paper, following the design. Then I'm going to stitch back into the end of this first stitch that I made on the front side, back down through the paper. Then once again, I'm going to space the needle out at the back, tracing the design. Push the needle up through the paper, and stitch back into the end of the next stitch on the front side. And I'm going to continue to do that until I've finished this line. If the lines on the back of the design aren't perfectly connected, just stitch around those stitches at the back to join them together into one continuous line. Now I'm going to remove the top pin because I don't need it anymore now that the paper is sewn to the top of the wing. When I've sewn the paper down to the bottom of the wing, I'm going to remove the bottom pin too. And if you start to run out of thread, like when there's about 4 or 5 inches left, move your needle down to the back and sew through the lines you just made for a couple of inches. And cut off the thread so that the end is hidden in the line. Or if you're closer to the edge, you could also hide the end of the thread in the edge. Then just start again in the same way. Stitch through the line for a couple of inches and pull through until there's a little bit of the tail sticking out. And I'm going to stitch around a couple of times just to anchor the thread. then cut off the ends to hide them. And I'm going to backstitch until I've filled in all the lines of my design. I'm going to do this for both wings. Alright, I've finished stitching both wings of my design. Now I'm going to gently remove the paper from the stitches. If you like, you could use a needle to push some of the smaller pieces of paper out from under the stitches, or you could use something like tweezers. And here are my finished wings. Now I can sew them to the back of a doll. If you want to see how I made this doll, click the link at the top of the screen for my crochet doll tutorial. If you want to see how I made my full-size wings, check out my Monarch Butterfly Costume Wings tutorial by clicking the link at the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, give it a like or share it on social media. If you want to help support me in making new videos, donate to my Patreon. It's entirely optional, but if you do, you can get some perks, like having access to my videos a week before they're posted here on YouTube. You can find more information about that in the description below. And if you want to see more videos in the future, subscribe to my channel and I'll see you all next time. Bye!